like I said, I can just introduce you. I was planning to say something like, in returning to I'd Buy That for the Dollar for the first time in a few years is a
G.G. Allen fan. No, don't say that. Actually not a G.G. Allen. G.G. Allen apologist.
G.G. Allen apologist and Zappa aficionado.
Yeah.
Ike Turner.
Time Waits super fan.
Yep.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for a Dollar, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, podcaster, rancher, and prosperous machinery merchant.
What is it? A machinery? So you sell machinery?
Yeah, I'm a merchant of machinery.
All kinds?
Yeah, do all kinds of merchant stuff with it, you know.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, good.
I'm co-host Jeremy, and I, much like our featured artist today, also probably would not have liked Jim Morrison if I was on tour with the Doors in the 60s.
Especially if he was like Oliver Stone portrayed him.
Ugh. Gross.
Well, I'm co-host Peter Cook, and I'm excited to announce that I've been named the top salesman regionally in the Midwest for Remington electric razors.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You're not using them though, I can see from here.
Yeah, it's a tough sell when the people can see that you don't. It's like a tattoo artist without tattoos.
Yeah.
I work magic, let's just say that.
All right.
Joining us today on I'd Buy That for a Dollar for a returning guest, coming back for the first time in a few years, like 3+ years, I realized. It was hard for me to fathom that. A musician, educator, podcast listener, sometimes guest, Ike Turner.
Yes, thank you. I am. My name's Ike Turner, and I am also featured on the soundtrack to the movie FM with no static at all.
Oh, yeah, along with Linda Ronstadt.
Linda Ronstadt, Tumbling Dice is on there. Yeah. So,
well, that's who we're here to talk about today, Linda Ronstadt. And when I first messaged you a while back about coming on to talk Linda Ronstadt, I quickly realized that both of us had no idea what album to feature by her, because she's one of those artists that, I mean, you have to realize that even probably many people in the 70s who would have considered themselves big fans of hers might have not even owned an album by her, because she was all over the radio.
Yeah.
And a ubiquitous figure.
All over the radio, all over television, all over print media, back when print media really mattered quite a bit. I mean, she was dating, the governor of California. I mean, at one point, it was not inconceivable that she would have been the first lady of the United States of America. I mean, there was talk of Brown running for president.
Oh, yeah.
And too, it's wild. She had these wild record sales, too. I mean, I thought that the record we're going to talk about today, which I won't say the name of.
That's okay.
We spoil it.
We can. Simple Dreams. Yeah.
I mean, didn't that overtake Tapestry as like the highest selling record of that era?
So it overtook Tapestry at that time it did not overtake. It was second to Tapestry as far as sales by a woman.
That's it. There we go.
It sold 3.5 million copies in its first year. So and I'm sure it's now been broken several times, but so it was the second best selling album by a woman, female artist, other than Carole King's Tapestry. And it went to number one on the Billboard album charts, and guess what album it displaced from number one?
This is in 1977.
77, 78, probably.
Oh, wow. What it displaced from number one in 1978.
Think about like really culturally massive album that's still...
Oh, Rumors?
Yes, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
Wow.
This overtook the number one spot from
That's
that.
Incredible.
So that's what I'm glad that we settled on this one, because I think it's lost the impact that it had in its time. In its day, sure, it was not underappreciated or overlooked, but now who would have known that it was something that could overtake Fleetwood Mac at the height of their career? So we'll start with the main reason why that happened, the big hit. That's of all the hits that Linda had, this is, I think, considered her signature song, and it's her rendition of the Roy Orbison and Joe Melson classic Blue Bayou, which is side B, track 1.
I feel so bad, I got a worried mind. I'm so lonesome all the time. Since I left my baby behind on Blue Bayou. Saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine, looking forward to happier times on Blue Bayou. I'm going back someday, come what may, to Blue Bayou, where the folks are fine and the world is mine on Blue Bayou, where those fishing boats with their sails afloat, if I could only see that familiar sunrise through sleepy eyes, how happy I'd be. Wanna see my baby again, wanna be with some of my friends, maybe I'll feel better again on Blue Bayou. Saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine, looking forward to happy times on Blue Bayou. I'm going back someday, come what may, to Blue Bayou.
I'm sure my fellow podcast hosts are gonna focus on Linda's voice, but what caught my ear on my first listen to that was the way that a whole slew of instruments kind of like come and go through the whole thing, and they're in for like 20 seconds and then they're gone, and then a marimba's there for 20, and it does it so like airily and effortlessly that it can happen and you wouldn't even know, but if you focus in, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, the atmosphere and arrangement on that song and this entire album is top notch, very pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song is maybe one of the only times where you could say that it has a tasteful use of cowbell.
Yeah, there's some other uses of cowbell on this that are a lot more standard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the percussion is incredible. We'll talk about players and producers more as we go here. And as Jeremy said, of course, it is hard to ignore Linda's voice and just how it pulls you in. I mean, it's clearly one of the all-time voices for sure. It's one of the reason she was one of the top artists of her era for a pretty sustained period. Mm-hmm. That we did hear, there was a little bit of Don Henley on backing vocals in there, and we'll talk more about the connection there as we go. That did reach number 3 on the Hot 100, number 2 on the country charts, and number 3 on easy listening. So it was a real crossover sensation. I remember when I was working in retail at Lowe's many years ago now, almost 20 years ago, that was one of the songs that played on the overhead speakers, and I was not familiar with it, but I would hear the melody and I'd think, what's this new song that sounds like Roy Orbison's crying? because there's it's another Roy Orbison song with some similar melodic phrases in there. And a friend of the podcast, Dan Gast, who has come up a few times, I mentioned it one time. He's like, "No, that's Blue Bayou by Linda Ronstadt." That's from the 70s. Around that same time, when I was working at Lowe's, there was a coworker named Mark Belko, still a very good friend of mine to this day. Real rough around the edges cat, born around 1960, has a lot of stories about being a wild rock and roller in the 70s and 80s. Just a million stories that are outlandish and ridiculous. And he always would, talk about his favorite bands being the Stones and AC/DC and stuff like that. And then one day, I think that song was playing overhead, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm always acting like I'm all tough about the music I listen to. I have a Linda Ronstadt CD at home."
Yeah.
And later I was hanging out with him, and he was going through his stuff. He's like, "There's Linda. She can sing," he said.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about other people's background with Linda.
Oh, I've got one, Peter.
Yeah. You always do. You like to come with a personal story.
I came loaded for bear. I think I'm a bit older than y'all. I was born in 1976. And I think if you're born in the 70s and come up in the 80s, she's still a really strong presence around because of the radio at that time would have been AM radio, to be honest with you, although she would have been played on FM and AM radio.
Not just part of the FM movie.
No, but would have been played, she was just always around. She was ubiquitous in culture. A lot of it was very salacious and weird. I always remember thinking it was kind of gross that they made a big deal out of her, like, her diet pill addiction and stuff like that. It was really kind of, even I remember being real little being kind of thinking that was like disgusting, weird.
Oh yeah. She got put under the microscope.
Oh, not more than everyone. I mean, Karen Carpenter, that's another terrible case, but she was in a very high profile. She was always in high profile relationships and all that. But my first memory of her is solidified in my mind. And I had to figure out the age. I thought I was 4 or 5. It turns out I was about 3.5. And that was on the Muppet Show. She was on the Muppet Show. We never missed the Muppet Show. We got 3 channels where I grew up, so we really didn't have
in North Dakota.
In North Dakota, yeah. And the Muppet Show was a really big deal, and I loved it a lot. And my mom loved it too, because that was something we would watch together. And there's stuff for adults in the Muppet Show too. And she comes on screen, and I just said, "Who is that?" And my mom's like, "Well, that's Linda Ronstadt." And I turned to my mom and I said, "I want her to be my mommy and my girlfriend," which is, just like what the, And then my mom immediately breaks down crying, like horribly crying, so much so that I remember it now, and I'm almost 50. And she's like, "You don't believe that. This is not true. You don't believe that." And it was this horrible fucking breakdown that she leaves the room, and I'm sitting in the room watching Linda Ronstadt on TV while my mom is having some sort of a breakdown in another room. When I'm looking back at the time, I was like, it was probably postpartum depression. She had just had my sister, It was all of these things were probably what was going on. But when you're 3 or 3.5, you're just like, whoa. I crossed the line. Which is, I don't think that's even that wild of a thing for a kid that age to say, but it probably just hit her wrong. It was a trigger. And my mom is from Southern California, and I do not know if my mother ever saw Linda Ronstadt in concert, but as I'm sure we'll get into, Linda Ronstadt was a road dog. Like she was a total worker. She was she comes from a solidly, really, really, really interesting intellectual and working class background.
Yeah.
But her approach to music early on is this road dog energy. I mean, there's those things that you read about, like in Mansion on the Hill and those Laurel Canyon books, where they're just like, every weekend she was gone. Every weekend, every single week she'd be like, "Okay, we're going to Reno, we're going to Vegas, we're going to get to Salt Lake City this weekend," and she was kind of cycling through band members, because they couldn't keep up with the pace of just constantly being on the road. And I think it just proved that she had an incredible drive, so.
Yeah. I mean, this album that we're hearing today is post major success. This is she's put out a greatest hits album already by this point, about roughly 10 years into her music career. But she was like you said, she was out there as like a cult act for so long. She was really on the underground circuit for so many years. She was about 30 when she hit the big time, the mainstream, you know, and we'll get into her background after we listen to another song. But before we do that, I'm just curious what the co-hosts Sean and Jeremy might have as far as background with Linda Ronstadt.
I'm pretty sure I've posited the question at least once in our group chat, maybe in person when we've been on like record digs where I'm like, do you guys know if any of these Linda Ronstadts are any good? There's like 40 of them here.
Yeah.
And for years and years and years, I've just seen piles of them everywhere. And I'm like, she must have been huge, but like it hasn't translated at all, I feel like. My entire knowing of her was like, I think she had something to do with the Eagles or something.
Oh, she sure did.
A little something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like it. So this was my first finally happening exposure of checking out Linda Ronstadt after years of just flipping past and being, I think I might have listened to one and was like, it's nothing here's grabbed me, and I don't even think I listened to the whole thing. So
Yeah, well, and as she went along, there were times where I think her albums could come off. She was being forced more and more to record songs that would be hits, rather than before that. She kind of curated a lot of her selection because she wasn't a songwriter.
Yeah, she's a stylist.
Yeah, stylist, interpreter. I think she's co-written not even half a dozen songs in her entire career. But as she went along, I think that there was a little less conviction behind her. She said she often preferred more the deep cuts on a lot of her records to the ones that were styled to be hits because they were ones that were more she chose and felt more passionate about performing. And some of the records can come across that way, but the voice is just out of this world. And the more and more I learned about all that she can do with her voice, all the different styles that she was able to very expertly approach.
Oh, that high lonesome Mexican folk music that she, that she grew up singing. That was her family's tradition. Hearing some of those records is kind of wild.
Yeah.
It doesn't even sound, I mean, it's Linda Ronstadt identifiably, but it's really bizarre how great it is. You know?
For sure. Sean, what about you?
I have kind of a weird specific history with Linda Ronstadt. I don't own any of her records personally, so I'm not terribly familiar with a lot of her catalog. The two I've listened to the most are actually her like 80s Great American Songbook albums, the two Nelson Riddle collaborations, What's New and Lush Life. And that is because one of my coworkers at Corner Record Shop, Satellite Records, Flip, those were two like go-to albums for him to put on when we were at work.
Oh, wow.
I think we'd gotten to a point where I was completely burned out on him playing Jethro Tull's Minstrel in the Gallery and never wanted to hear that album ever again. And he put those Linda albums on. I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. This is surprisingly good and easy to listen to. We can do these now. Haven't really dug in much beyond that.
That's cool because that's an era I'm aware of those from having done the research for this episode, but I've never really gone that far into her career, her discography to really hear those in proper. So, and I don't recall Flip ever playing them when I was around. He probably was going for something a little quote unquote cooler than Linda. But that was another surprise to me that she really definitely, she kind of had that, I don't know, 10 or so years of being really in the spotlight with these hit records in the 70s, early 80s. And then it seems like she really then just sort of went off on personal journeys and exploration with her music. And we'll get into that some, but how about we play another selection before we do that?
let's play another selection.
We're going to go with another mellow cut before we get to some of the more rockin' tunes that Ike chose for this one. And I mentioned this on a recent episode that we were going to feature an album with a J.D. Souther song on it. And this is one that we previously featured when we talked about Black Rose by J.D. Souther with guest Jesse Phillips. The song Simple Man, Simple Dream, clearly the inspiration for the title of the album. And I really like what Linda does with this versus what JD did with the original. So let's go ahead and listen to Simple Man, Simple Dream, Side A, Track 3.
What if I fall in love with you, just like normal people do? Well, maybe I'd kill you, or maybe I'd be true. When I go down to get a job sometime, it seems people can read my mind and make money disappear while they're talking sweet and kind. Well, in some ways I am like a child. You never seem to know it. And if a kind word ever crossed your mind, you never tried to show it. Well, in some ways I am like a child. You never seem to know it. And if a kind word ever crossed your mind, you never tried to show it. When people don't know what you mean.
Similar to Jeremy's observation about the arrangement on Blue Bayou, listeners probably also noticed that that one had a lot of instrumentation coming in and out. Obviously, Linda's voice being the centerpiece, but there's a lot of almost ornamentation, including a string arrangement with viola by David Campbell in there for just the briefest little passage to bring in. And that's the only, as far as I know, that's the only contribution he made to there. You know, a very major working arranger and father of Ike's all-time favorite musician, Beck.
Hail Xenu. Early Scientologist too, man.
I was going to say, I thought those strings had a bit of a Scientology bent to them.
They do. They do. They make you want to pay more money for them.
For the record, since people don't know this, they don't know Ike like I know him, he's not a Beck fan. Just for the record. But anyway, yeah, just that when I realized I saw his David Campbell's name on there, and I'm like, where were the strings in there? And I had to listen closely. You could almost miss them. But it's those little touches that beyond just Linda's voice that really elevate this to just almost like you were when she started singing there, Ike. You said you were just like, wow, she really has a good voice. It seems heavenly coming out of there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, do we want to learn where this heavenly voice came from?
I think we should.
So, Linda Ronstadt was born July 15th, 1946. Now, that stood out to me right out the gate because my brother's birthday was July 15th. R.I.P. Jonathan Cook. Mm-hmm. And so that stood out to me. But then what stood out to me was when I looked into people who share that birthday aside from Linda and my brother. And that included a whole list of musicians. And I don't know that I definitely knew who shares my birthday, what famous people share my birthday, but I don't think I ever knew. If I did ever look it up, I probably didn't know who these people were that share a birthday with my brother. So we got Linda Ronstadt, Millie Jackson, Rocky Erickson, Trevor Horn, Artemis Pyle, Johnny Thunders, Ian Curtis, and Joe Satriani.
Oh my gosh. That is a damaged group.
So, yeah,
what a super group.
Yeah. So I was just like, no wonder my brother was a fantastic musician.
Wow.
Yeah. Most of that's more the rock and soul direction. He went more the classical direction. But yeah, that blew my mind to learn what my brother.
That's incredible.
Who my brother shared birthdays with. Yeah.
Ian Curtis and Johnny Thunders.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. So she was born in Tucson, Arizona, and at that time it was a remote town deep in the desert. She She and her family resided on a 10-acre ranch. Her father, look at this. He was a prosperous machinery merchant, just like Sean. But he was
Lot in common.
yeah. And her father was of German-Mexican heritage. He sang in local clubs on the side, apparently. Her mother also was a musician who liked to play Gilbert and Sullivan on the piano at home. So she grew up in this highly musical family. And it's like a line of geniuses. Her grandfather on her mother's side was a guy named Lloyd Groff Copeman, who was an inventor from Michigan, who had over 700 patents to his name, including the first electric stove and the flexible rubber ice cube tray. And her parents were actually married in Flint, Michigan in 1937. So her and her siblings, as I said, they were raised in this highly musical environment. And between the music that the family performed and what she heard on the radio, she grew up on country, gospel, mariachi, big band, opera, R&B, and later rock and roll. And she, from a young age, would copy those singing styles just of everything she heard with seemingly a natural ability. And she would later say that she struggled to take on any style of music that she didn't learn in those formative years. It just got encoded into her DNA in those years. So as a teenager, she began frequenting Tucson's folk music clubs and formed a folk trio with her brother and sister. And although many of types of music, as we discussed, had caught her imagination, the folk revival is what really lit a fire under her because it was both musical and political. She quickly realized that these stages in Tucson were a good place to start, but the bigger stage to the west was calling her name. And so she moved to Los Angeles in 1965, so she wouldn't have even been 20 at that point. And she formed a band called the Stone Ponies, which played the Southern California folk circuit, as we've kind of alluded to. It's I think right from the get-go, just rigorously. They would perform all over. It was an appearance at the legendary West Hollywood venue, the Troubadour, which broke many people.
Ground Zero.
Yeah.
Laurel Canyon Ground Zero.
Yeah. You got people from Neil Diamond to Elton John to Cheech and Chong, Steve Martin.
Neil Diamond and Neil Young.
Yeah. You know? Just everyone imaginable. So many people that you can think of were broke at the Troubadour. And Linda and the Stone Ponies came to the attention of agent Herb Cohen, who landed them a contract with Capitol Records. The Stone Ponies released 3 albums and had one big hit song. Does anyone know offhand what that is?
You and I did a different drum.
Different drum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
am I right about that?
You got it. Yeah, that was the Stone Ponies song. It was
Ain't dead yet.
written by Michael Nesmith.
Yeah,
of the
Monkees dude.
Yeah.
I remember that too for some reason.
But beyond that, they never really quite found their audience in that whole late 60s musical landscape, and which I can kind of understand just with everything going on. And so by 68, they disbanded, which forced Linda to become a solo artist, something she had not set out to do, but it did make her consider what kind of music she felt comfortable singing, and she decided that country music was the way to go. But it was going to be her own take on country music, bringing everything that she could think of and had learned to the table. And in doing that, she joined a movement in Los Angeles of the late 1960s, led by people like Graham Parsons, to blend rock and country sounds. We, of course, recently talked about, on our Danny O'Keefe episode, talked about the cosmic country sort of made up subgenre there, or country soul could be another term for that. Linda had a specific blend of sounds she wanted to achieve with her take on country music, describing it as R&B, an R&B rhythm section with a country top like pedal steel or twangy guitar. It took her years to find a band that would execute the fusion she heard in her head. When she recorded her second album, Silk Purse, in Nashville, the one where she's on the cover with the pig, I'm sure we've all seen that cover. Yeah. She recorded that in Nashville. She was hoping to achieve some authentic country vibes, and it's a great album. It sounds wonderful.
Isn't it recorded at the same time she's singing on Harvest? Because they were in Nashville at the same time.
It would be right around, yeah.
And I think he just is like, can you come over and sing some backup vocals? You and James Taylor come sing some backup vocals on Harvest.
Well, yeah, Harvest is 72, right? Yeah. So this was about 70, I think.
Oh, okay, but before that. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. That'll come up shortly.
Sure.
And she said that it really surprised her. She was excited to go to Nashville, and then she encountered all of this racism there that was a very different. It was a far cry from the attitude of the hippies in Southern California in the late 60s, early 70s. Herb Cohen, her manager, told her she was too country for pop and too pop for country. And Capitol, her label, they wanted her to pick a lane and stick to it. So in spring of 1970, through frequenting the Troubadour, the aforementioned club that was very highly influential in many people's careers, Linda Ronstadt met a guy named John Boylan, who was a young producer and songwriter who was the first person who could really see the merit in what she was trying to do. John Boylan had previously gained attention for assembling the Stone Canyon Band, which had helped former child star Ricky Nelson revive his career. And he had selected those musicians in the Stone Canyon Band from the acts at the Troubadour, and he did the same in selecting the right lineup of musicians for Linda Ronstadt. His first recruit was a young guitarist from a recently disbanded folk duo called Long Branch Pennywhistle. That guitarist was a Detroit transplant named Glenn Fry. Fry, in turn, suggested a drummer he knew from Texas named Don Henley, who was in a band called Shiloh, a band whom Boylan was familiar. Apparently, Henley had mailed Boylan the Shiloh demo, and he really liked it, but they had put no contact information on it. So it's like, oh yeah, I know your band, but why didn't you put an address or a phone number on there? So when Ronstadt left for tour in 1971, she took Fry on guitar and Henley on drums as half her backing band. And then when her other guitarist and the bassist fell off along the way, they were replaced by guitarist Bernie Ledden and bassist Randy Meisner, both veterans of the Southern California folk country scene. So this is the lineup that, of course, as Jeremy alluded to, went on to form the Eagles. They came together as Linda Ronstadt's backing band. Linda said that it was actually the first gig that they performed with her was at Disneyland in July 1971. And Linda said she knew pretty quickly that there was something unique in the band that had been assembled to back her. And she said that she often felt as though she was holding the microphone to avoid getting swept away by the waves of sound cascading behind her. So she could hear that there was something there that was going to resonate with people, regardless of how you feel about the fucking Eagles. Her next album, the self-titled 1972 album, wasn't quite a commercial breakthrough, but the sound was much closer to what she had desired, and it sort of anticipated the Americana movement. She then broke away from Capitol Records for David Geffen's Asylum label, and she had hoped for a fresh start, but her professional partnership with John Boylan had become quite contentious and competitive in the studio, and she'd reached a point that she didn't really trust producers anymore. And Boylan, he in turn decided it was time to break the rut. And Ronstadt had recently contributed backing vocals alongside James Taylor to the Neil Young breakout single Heart of Gold, as we previously mentioned. And Young was now a megastar on the success of that hit song. He was touring arenas across America. So Boylan pulled some strings and got Ronstadt to become the opening act on this tour, which is that's the tour that one of
Time Fades Away,
your all-time favorites.
My favorite record of all time.
Yeah, that would have been that. That's funny to think that Linda was out there every day.
Worst. That would have been the worst experience for any human, or particularly Linda is not a delicate flower by any means.
Yeah.
She probably saw more tough, gnarly, awful stuff by the age of 19 than most people, but I cannot imagine being around all of those criminals.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly leads into the next part. She was apprehensive about this, as she had only played small venues and wasn't sure she could command arena audiences, their attention. But on January 23rd, 1973, she found herself at Madison Square Garden opening for Neil Young. That's her first show of the tour, is their Madison Square Garden show. So this was a huge adjustment for her, and she definitely felt out of her element. She did say she found Neil Young respectful, but some of his bandmates, in particular keyboardist Jack Nietzsche,
creep.
He would drunkenly verbalize to her that she wasn't up to the task of being their opener just every night. And so she ended up fortifying herself through heavy cocaine use on that tour.
He was a dark dude. If you read the Ginny McDonough book, Shaky, there are some hair-raising things about Jack Nitzsche in there that are, not cool. Not a cool dude. So
Yeah, I was very glad to hear that she found Neil respectful. But John Boylan commented that while this was a struggle for her, she gradually came to realize that she did belong on a larger stage as she knocked audiences dead night after night. And this considerably raised her profile, opening for Neil Young at the height of his commercial success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Jack Nitzsche verbal abuse on the Neil Young tour is just one example of the type of treatment she had to put up with constantly as a woman in a male-dominated space in the 1970s, which is probably what led her to put a feminist spin on her cover of the Rolling Stones' Tumbling Dice that she does on this album. Reportedly, Mick Jagger told her backstage at a concert that she should try her hand at more rock and roll as she did too many ballads, he said. And so we'll play that cut. I do just want to give a trigger warning that she comes out swinging with the opening line. Yep. She's predating the Me Too movement by about 40 years here. So let's listen to Linda's take on Tumbling Dice, side B, track 4.
Well, that's an all-time favorite Stones track of mine, and Linda really does a great job with it. I definitely gravitated more towards the rock songs on this album than the more ballads. So yeah, that one, it lives up to an excellent song.
So you're in agreement with Mick Jagger on this one. She needed to do more rock songs.
Yeah.
I'm in disagreement with Mick Jagger.
You prefer the ballad stuff? Or?
Yeah, I was sad you didn't do Carmelita.
So she does 2 Warren Zevon songs on here, and I was really, really leaning towards Carmelita as being one of them, because it's really something else hearing her on this top-selling album that was put on by normies across America in their their living rooms and dining rooms and whatnot, saying she's all strung out on heroin.
In Echo Park or something.
But then I really wanted to do the J.D. Souther track, just because it's one we previously talked about, and I really liked her take on it. And
that's fine. Yeah. I didn't bring it.
But Ike says also that Warren Zevon's in the same category as Beck for him, as far as people.
Wow, really?
I can't stand Warren Zevon. Oh. Noted Father of the Year, Warren Zevon. The best thing I ever saw him do was on Letterman. Was one of those, the last appearance he had before he dipped out for good, and I think he gifted a guitar to David Letterman. Like you can go on YouTube and see it and stuff. But yeah, no, he's not a fan.
That's where I learned of Warren Zevon, because he would fill in for Paul Schaefer sometimes, and it wasn't until years later I realized just how much of a career this guy on Letterman had.
Big time, yeah.
I really, really like the song Nighttime in the Switching Yard, and that's the only Warren Zevon song I've ever heard that I liked.
Oh, there you go.
He's a wildcat, so there's got to be something interesting about him.
Yeah,
for just about anyone.
Noted, I'd buy that for $1 guest. Ryan Werner. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's like a Warren Zevon fanatic. Like I think he adores the guy's music.
That would track.
And Ryan, he's all over the place, but say what you want about Ryan Werner, and people have said a lot of stuff. But he knows what he likes, and he brings the ammunition to talk about it.
He can make you at least appreciate that he likes something.
Yep.
It is worth mentioning, since we're talking so much about Warren, that he didn't really have much of a commercial career until Linda started recording his songs on her albums. That raised his profile considerably. So that's an interesting aspect of Linda, that she would take these old songs and reintroduce them to a new generation, as well as take these songs from relatively unknown contemporaries and introduce them to the general public as well. So let's talk about some of these other players on this album. We'll start with the guitars that are provided by two individuals, Dan Dugmore as well as Waddy Wachtel.
Oh boy.
They're both session players who worked with just about everyone, but are also longtime associates of Ronstadt. Now, Wachtel,
rough Wikipedia search. Or I vaguely remember when the news hit. News spread a little differently in 1996. It wasn't kind of constant, and I think that things could happen to you. Or you could do things, possibly in 1996, the news would break and you could just kind of muscle through it and hope that the collective consciousness forgets. But he had a pretty high profile.
We're talking about Waddy Wachtel.
Oh, yeah, Waddy Wachtel, yeah. He had a pretty high profile child pornography charge.
Yeah.
And, found, images on a computer and images in his room. And one of the quotes of that was people defending him. And this person said, there's no way it's true. It's no way it's true. So, Stevie would never have taken him out on the road if she had known. And I was just like,
Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, Stevie Nicks. And I was like, Stevie Nicks, who at one point, had an abortion from Don, which is I support abortion. I'm not saying it's bad, but from Don Henley's, love child. Around the same time, Don Henley has this 14-year-old prostitute escaping, drugged out of her mind and ODing from his house, which he then later would write the song Dirty Laundry about. I mean, these people live like Caligula.
Yeah.
They live like fucking Caligula. I mean, they were not worried about like, I want to go get some quinoa and, like organic grapes. I mean, these people were, they were monsters.
Yeah.
So and Stevie Nicks, whether she knew or didn't know about Waddy Wachtel, who knows? I mean, people who try to keep those secrets are usually pretty good at keeping those secrets until they're not, So, but anyway, it just seems like all these people we see her surrounded by are just complete fucking creeps.
That's really. I did learn that Linda really kind of had to present as very tough. And more so than she would have been comfortable. She said that she apparently had a lot of identity crisis because of how much she had to toughen up in the environment that she was in. This all male, full of mostly creeps.
Yeah. It must have been super refreshing for her when she was singing with Emmylou Harris and Dolly Parton. And they all, I assume those three looked at each other and was just like, game recognizes game here.
Yeah.
Here's the three greatest voices of a generation, pretty much, right? They're just all incredible. I mean, if Patsy Cline had lived, she could have been in that group too, and it would have made perfect. And they just seem like, watching the old footage of them singing together, they just seem like, these are just like three bros. They love each other, and I bet that was incredibly refreshing to do shows with them.
I think to support your claim of her work ethic, Dolly actually said in an interview that Linda was a pain in the ass because she would make her do the harmonies like over and over and over in that, because she was a perfectionist. She wanted everything to be like flawless. And, if you're making Dolly do it over and over, I'm sure it wasn't like they weren't bad takes.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Well, and Dolly did also speak very highly of her like musicianship.
Oh
That-
yeah,
so-
yeah. I don't think she meant pain in the ass like negatively.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in a very like sisterly kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on, we have Kenny Edwards on bass as well as backing vocals, and he's the mandolin on Blue Bayou. He was in the Stone Ponies with Linda, so a longtime associate. Rick Murata on drums, he's all over the place, and he's on various percussion on this as well.
Check out this dude's 1977. Rick Murata on drums, as well as Don Grolnick, who plays the clavinet.
Yeah.
Check out their 1977. In May, they make this record, right? They're recording this record. It's great. You know, the drums are fine on it. I don't know if there's anything that's you'd call a tasty lick on there. But then a few months later in November, he's in the studio recording the song Peg with Steely Dan with Don Grolnick also on keys and clavinet there. That dude within a calendar year is on Asia and then on Sweet Dream. I mean, that is kind of unbelievable, you know, that this dude had both of those experiences with an account, and talk about being around perfectionists for both of them in that case too.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing if you ask me. So
Yeah. Well, these behind the scenes cats that sometimes within just such a span, they could be they could turn on the radio and hear themselves one song to the next.
Yeah, imagine being in the band Toto, and then like every song you heard throughout the 1980s had one member or another on it, you know. So, but
Yeah. You mentioned Don Grolnick. He supplies various piano, organ, and keys. He was a jazz player associated with the Brecker brothers. And then there's Peter Asher is the last one I'm going to mention. He's on backing vocals in various percussion throughout. Now that's Peter Asher of the 1960s folk duo Peter and Gordon, who had by then, you know, they had a number of hits like I Go to Pieces and I Don't Care What They Say, I Won't Stay in a World Without Love.
wow.
And he had then worked with the Beatles and Apple Records before moving to Los Angeles and working with James Taylor. So Peter Asher and Linda Ronstadt met sometime in the early 1970s, and he would become a crucial collaborator in her career. John Boylan, the guy who's been overseeing her career up to this point, he was in favor of Asher taking over the managerial and producer aspects of Linda's career. It run its course with Boylan by then. He and Linda had briefly been an item, and then in this more professional setting, and she was working on her Don't Look Now album, and they paused for her to go out on tour with Neil Young. Came back and J.D. Souther kind of took over, but he and Linda then also, J.D. Souther and Linda ended up in a relationship for several years. That complicated matters. And so Asher came in, Peter Asher comes in. He finally is the one that can help her complete this album. In Peter Asher, Linda found a producer and manager who listened to her rather than telling her what to do, and didn't try to become romantically involved with her either, which was
The Jimmy Iovine approach.
exactly. Yeah, apparently this was a real problem with Linda. These men would work closely with her and then try to get romantically involved, and it would complicate matters. So Peter Asher actually won the Grammy for the Producer of the Year non-classical for his work on this album. This also won Best Album Package Design. It was done by a guy named John Kosh, who just went by Kosh. He did the artwork for several of Linda Ronstadt's albums. He had previously been the art director on the Beatles' Abbey Road and Let It Be, as well as the Who's Next. I did notice, I think, in this, what seems to be on the cover of this album, it appears to be Linda in her dressing room wearing like a silk robe of some kind. I think there's pot leaves on the dress there.
I wonder
or
if
the
that's a
robe.
nod to the nudie suit that Graham Parsons wore.
I was wondering that. Yeah, because
Oh,
he
man.
had the nudie suit with the pot leaves on it. So I wonder, because she, that's someone that she had known.
Oh yeah, they were all bros. That whole scene was all together all the time, hanging out, just like scenes do that, right? Like anytime there's a scene, they'd be like, oh yeah, this person's friends with that, or this person's dating that person. They're just all together,
So yeah, we mentioned earlier this was her first album following her first greatest hits collection, and it became the best-selling album of her career, at least as far as studio albums. I think those greatest hits ones, I'm sure, in the tens of millions probably, as far as how much they sold. But going on into her career into the 1980s, by 1980, she had enough hits for a second greatest hits collection, included 4 cuts from this album. She then also starred in Broadway musicals and films. You mentioned like FM and some of those Broadway musical adaptations. She sang opera. She formed the trio with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris. She honored her Mexican heritage with an album of traditional Mexican songs that also became a limited run Broadway musical. Like, I had no idea about a lot of this stuff. She just kept putting in work.
And got super politically active too, didn't she? I know she was a no nukes person for a long time.
Oh yes, that very much so. And she got in trouble as an outspoken liberal for performing in South Africa during the cultural boycott due to apartheid. She said I've seen interviews where she would be confronted with this, and she said she felt putting a ban on the arts and performing was counterintuitive. She actually, when Paul Simon put her on Graceland in 1986, he got some pushback for that as well. He's like, "Come on," she is an outspoken liberal. She we need to lay off this. And this is pre-social media times.
I think his direct quote was actually, "Wait a second, I stole all these songs from Los Lobos, not her." I'm not paying union wage to Ladysmith Black Mambaza. I'm not. She is.
Yeah.
She's like the big thief of her time. That's what it is. They can play Tel Aviv anytime they want.
I did like her take on the one interview clip where they were asking her about playing in South Africa. And she's like, well, if I was going to not play countries where I thought that they had like abhorrent politics, then I couldn't play in the United States either.
Yeah, she started naming off specific sections. That's particularly. And
the American South.
Yeah, in Boston, she said. Yeah,
America's most racist city. Yeah.
Yeah, she's apparently like really kept up on things. She was very well read and very, very well spoken on matters, very forthright in her opinions. I really came to respect her more and more the more clips I saw. She had a huge hit duet with James Ingram in the mid-1980s, the 86, 87 for Somewhere Out There from An American Tail, the Fievel movie.
Oh, the little mouse.
Yeah. She guested as herself on the 1992 Simpsons episode Mr. Plow. Yeah, that's probably one of the first places I would have ever heard of her. Funny enough, in 1989, Simpsons creator Matt Groening had provided composer Danny Elfman with a tape of flavors he was looking for in the theme song for The Simpsons, and one of the pieces included was a 1967 advertisement for Remington electric razors performed by Linda Ronstadt and Frank Zappa. Which I found it apparently was never used, to my understanding. It was something that Zappa was commissioned to do, and then he sent them that, and they were Herb Cohen was the manager for both Linda and Frank, so that's how that connection happened.
Like Ween doing Burger King ads or something,
right?
So
the Pizza Hut, where did the cheese go? Yeah, the same thing happened there. They
cashed the check.
Yeah, well, after the first one was rejected, the Where the Cheese Go song, they then sent back like Where the motherfucking cheese go as their second submission to Pizza Hut. Yeah, they never heard back after that. Interestingly, Linda has never married, which is actually a song. She has a song on here with Dolly Parton harmonizing with her, the I'll Never Marry. And she has, as you mentioned, she's had high-profile relationships, particularly with California Governor Jerry Brown from the mid-'70s to the early 1980s. She briefly dated actor Jim Carrey in 1983, long before he would have been anyone that really was, that's about 10 years before Ace Ventura, when his career really took off. In Living Color's like, 90 or so. Although it is funny, sometimes you'll go back and like I watched Peggy Sue Got Married, and there's Jim Carrey in a part in that one in the mid-1980s. She was then engaged to director George Lucas for 5 years in the 1980s.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So those were all things new to me. Basically, I knew about Jerry Brown, but
I heard she talked him into the Jar Jar Binks character. That was her idea.
She did adopt a son and daughter in the 1990s. And then unfortunately in the 2000s, she started to notice that what she described as the color of her voice was beginning to wane. And for years, it was believed to be the result of Parkinson's disease. She was eventually diagnosed with a similar condition called progressive supranuclear palsy, which affects movements and speech. So she officially retired from performing in 2011. I watched I think it was a CNN documentary from late 2019, early 2020, where they actually show her with some of her family members singing one of those traditional Mexican songs. And she really, she God bless her, she made an attempt on camera to sing with her family. She stops at one point because she's struggling with some of the notes, and she's saying, like, I can't even hit that with my speaking voice anymore. And she says, I have to sing this with them. It's just something we do as a family. So it did illustrate just that she has lost her singing voice. She will be 80 years old this year, so I'm grateful she's still with us. And still, she endorsed Kamala Harris for president in 2024. Still seems very puts her opinions out there and keeps up on current events and whatnot. But it is for how active she was for so long, it's kind of sad that she's just not able to do what she was put on this earth to do anymore. Mm-hmm. That's about all I had on her. It was hard to pack her life into that's the condensed, consolidated bio right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I would love someone like a Grail Marcus type or Peter Guralnick to do, what is it? Guralnick who did the 2-volume Elvis. I mean, it's 2 tomes. It's like, 1,700 pages total or something. I think that she's worthy of something like that as well. It's just that fine line of like these sort of, she lived in the tabloids. People knew about her from the tabloids. And do you want to sort of include those salacious things and tabloid stuff in a serious work? She really had a very unique position in American culture, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I even hesitated, like, should I bring up her relationships? It's interesting, but it was like so much what was focused on with her, those kind of things. And her
relationships and weight. Those are the 2 things she was constantly being kind of derided for, or people talked about. It was just, what an awful way to live.
Yeah. I know she said that she was eventually able to trade in the diet pills for a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Like that she was able to kind of reckon with some of the things that she was dealing with. Yeah. And we're not even going to go into all the horror stories of the type things she had to deal with men in working in the industry. But yeah, it's a trooper, like just someone that has really managed to persevere and put out an incredible body of work. While, album almost every year, every couple of years for decades. Well, with that all said, you can find a lot of those works for pretty cheap. There are some of those early ones, like Silk Purse, actually collects a higher price tag nowadays. You're probably going to pay $15, $20, $25 for a copy of that now. And there's always a good chance you're going to find it in $1, in a used bin at a Goodwill or something. But if people can't find these Linda Ronstadt albums, Sean, do you have
First, you should get glasses or something if you can't find a Linda Ronstadt album.
Yeah, they're out there. But did you happen to put together a list of recommended similar albums, Sean?
Oh, I sure did. I wanted to think of a handful of 1977 albums fronted by women vocalists that feature a eclectic range of genre influence, and I think I got a pretty good selection here. So first up, a album that we actually talked about with Ryan Werner that has since become one of my favorite albums that we've featured, Nona Hendrix's self-titled album, 1977. Nona was obviously a longtime member of LaBelle and primary songwriter with that group. And then her debut album has a surprising range of like hard rock and folk influences going on. It's not just the soul music that she had been doing. So highly recommend that episode and that album. Next up, another all-time great singer who had a very contentious relationship with her backing band, Rufus and Chaka Khan, and their masterpiece album, Ask Rufus, 1977.
That's not the one that we featured previously.
Correct. I almost did that one. It was a tough decision on which Rufus album to feature. There's some really, really good ones.
The one we talked about wasn't 77.
Correct. And then another one, artist we featured, but a different album, Joan Armatrading's Show Some Emotion, 1977. That's the follow-up to her self-titled huge hit from 1976 that we featured. And that one kind of moves beyond the more like folky, folk rock kind of stuff that she was primarily doing. And there's a lot more varied influence, some soul going on, some rock. That's an amazing album, kind of overshadowed by the one that sold better and charted higher before it.
I may have mentioned this when we did the Joan Armatrading album, which was now almost, I think, 6 years ago. I first heard of her through, of all people, Frank Black. Black Francis from the Pixies cited her as a favorite musician, which I was almost going to say another person you hate, but I don't think that's true. I don't think you're just not you're not big on him, but I don't think you hate Frank Black.
Not outright, white hatred, nothing like that. So.
Yeah. So I think Dinah Washington is another he cited as a favorite. So I found some pretty cool vocalists and musicians through. I was always someone that always liked to hear what the people, the musicians I liked. I would go seek out the people they would name drop. Was that all you had, Sean?
I got one more, an all-time favorite artist of Peter's, actually. This is her final album, came out in 1977. She died just, I think, less than a year later. But Sandy Denny's final album, Rendezvous, on Island Records. It's not as expensive as a lot of the other stuff she's done because it's in some ways a bit of a genre departure, but then it makes it a lot more similar to this Linda album. There's a lot more like rock and pop influences plus all of the varied folk and traditional influences that she'd been working on. So it's really, really cool album. And yeah, I think it fits perfectly with Linda.
It hadn't occurred to me that we could ever discuss Sandy Denny other than, I don't even know if there's a Fairport Convention album that would fit our criteria, but or especially one that she was on.
Yeah,
maybe some of the
later ones.
Yeah, but maybe that one that would be something. Yeah, she's kind of a tragic. She's a tragic story.
Oh, truly,
yeah,
terrible.
Yeah,
reading that Richard Thompson book from a few years ago, you can just tell even now, 50 years later, he's just kind of crushed by how that all went down, like her life and everything. So,
did you go see Richard Thompson at the Acorn in Three Oaks with former guest Brad Miller? And
no, I didn't. I had a family thing I had to do that.
Okay.
Night, so.
Yeah. I regret not going to that. And I think I just didn't really even know about it far enough in advance for it to happen. Or maybe we were recording an episode, a podcast already that night or something and had a guest.
It was a Sunday night.
Yeah. I think that might have been what happened. I would love to see Richard Thompson.
He's the last, he's my white whale now. He's the last one of bands that I adored, love, that are like lifetime achievement list, bands for me. I got to knock one off the list a few years ago here in Kalamazoo when I finally got to see Yo La Tengo. They didn't play North Dakota much. What a shock. And... and they delivered.
Does.
Yeah, nobody did. Yeah, well, so some people did, but not Yo La Tengo. But Richard Thompson's literally the last. He's the last on my list of people I never got to see that I'm. His music is within me, So
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye out. Maybe make that. Maybe it can happen for both of us.
That'd be rad, dude. That'd be good road trip.
Well, Ike, before we introduce our final selection, and not to put you on the spot, but you're kind of up to a lot yourself as far as creating and making music and stuff. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm probably like a lot of your guests that play in a bunch of bands and all that stuff. And I'm easy to find on social media or whatever, but there are maybe two I'd like to say, or two or three. One is I'm in a band with a former guest, Bob Bucko Jr., and that band is called New Standards Men. And we just released a record, or EP, I guess, the proceeds of which go directly to a group in Minnesota that is working with immigrants in Minnesota who are under attack right now from ICE and from right-wing weirdos. And this group is really incredible. It's the Minnesota Immigrant Resource Center. It's really incredible. That band, also New Standards Man, we have a new record coming out on Island House Records soon-ish.
Okay.
And we recorded that in Chicago this year, or last year, sorry.
At Electric Audio?
At Electric Audio. And it's I'm really, really stoked on that record. I think it's really cool. We actually recorded 3 records, and that'll be the first of those released. I got a new record coming out with my band Three Grebes soon-ish here also. And we have a guest vocalist on there. Our friend Leah did vocals. And I really love the record. I don't know what anyone else will think about it. I sent it out to a bunch of, people and labels and stuff to see, like, for me to take a chance on it, because I was listening to it and I was like, oh man, I love this. This is great. And just complete crickets. So maybe it's one of those things where, you think, if you have an ugly child, you think they're beautiful thing. And then I, of course, play in the Kalamazoo Drone Society with you, Peter. So, and I love playing that.
Soon we'll be rehearsing for a new release, to record a new album in the coming months here.
Yep.
All of those aforementioned bands, New Standards, Men's, Three Grebes, Kalamazoo Drone Society. The place to find them is on Bandcamp, right?
Yeah. Bandcamp's the best place to find it. We don't have anything on Spotify or anything like that.
Yeah,
we do on Apple Music, but not Spotify. So,
I know you pushed us to take down the Kalamazoo Drone Society stuff off Spotify because they're
can't truck with the ICE ads.
ICE ads, yeah.
We all have our line, so yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming up. Linda Ronstadt's a long overdue artist for us to feature, and it was a tough call to decide on which album. If what you heard today didn't grab you, give other phases of her career a shot. Like it's incredible what she actually did. This is kind of more just during her really high profile stuff you still hear in retail stores and whatnot. But yeah, I was really impressed with her as both a human and an artist in doing all the research. Do we have any final thoughts before we talk about our final selection?
I'm kind of pumped to check out from reading her Songs from My Father that's all in Spanish language, because I've been at my job producing Alma Latina Spanish language radio show. So I've been gaining a new appreciation for a lot of that music. So now I'm kind of amped to hear her take on it now that I know it's out there.
Yeah.
That's great.
What I heard of that in the documentary that I watched sounded really intriguing. And I definitely want to check that out. I was also just amazed hearing her. There were just a few clips of her doing opera in there, and whoa, she could do it. Like, and Dolly Parton made a point to say, I couldn't do that. So yeah, it's an incredible range, fantastic singer. Sorry she can no longer perform, but glad she's still with us. Mm-hmm. And we're planning to go out on her hit cover of the Buddy Holly Norman Petty song "It's So Easy," originally released by the Crickets in 1958. But from what I could understand, it didn't actually chart for the Crickets. It was Linda's cover. It hit the top 5 at the same time as her cover of Blue Bayou, which made her the first female artist to have 2 songs in the Billboard Top 10 at the same time. So a lot of firsts with her. She was a real trailblazer. And that's it. We'll go out on that song. Of course, we thank you for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. You can check us out over at patreon.com/I'd Buy That podcast to support the program and get some cool bonus episodes. Let's get out of here, and it's so easy. I'm co-host Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy.
I'm co-host Sean Hartman.
I guess I'm guest Ike, and thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Of course. We'll make it less than a few years next time.
That sounds great. I love it.
Yeah, we were overdue for Linda, and we were overdue to have you back.
If you guys find a Space Needle record in the used bin that's only $1, I'd like to come and talk about that.
We'll keep our eye out.